The great city of Liverpool is famous for many things, most notably the Beatles and of course football. But people don't realise today that Liverpool was once very famous for a piece of transportation. A railway was around for about 60 years and was world famous. I'm talking about the Liverpool Overhead Railway. From the mid to the late 19th century, Liverpool became one of the busiest port cities in the world. In fact, at one stage it was the busiest port in the world. It's hard to emphasize just how much the Liverpool dock area had expanded, with industries spawning right along the area of the waterfront. This led to heavy congestion and some problems in terms of people and danger on the streets. So the decision was made to build the overhead railway. The idea behind it was they could perhaps solve some problems and at the same time make some money. We can go back as far as about 1852 when there were first discussions about the possibility of building an overhead railway. Because at that time these sort of ships were constantly sailing in and out of Liverpool. It was 1889 that building actually commenced. Two very famous engineers, James Henry Greathead and Sir Douglas Fox, were commissioned to build the railway. It was completed in about 1893. In 1894, the opening of the railway took place here. Sometimes we find it difficult to understand just what a big event that was, because Lord Salisbury was the British Prime Minister, and he was there to open the railway. That would be equivalent today of President Obama opening a piece of transportation, because Britain was the greatest power in the world. Lord Salisbury was the most powerful man in the world, and yet he was the man who opened the overhead railway. That's just how important this railway was. As the overhead railway made its way north, it finished at Dingle Station. One rather strange feature of the overhead railway was that although it was very elevated, and in fact if your camera moves up, we can see where the trains entered the cliffside before travelling half a mile down into the Dingle tunnels. So that was rather strange. We had an overhead railway which ended at Dingle Underground. Okay, the very final station north on the overhead railway was the Dingle station. Of course, to the Dingle residents, it was the first station because they went that way. But anyway, this is the entrance to the Dingle station as it is today in 2011. It's actually, the space is owned by, I think they're car engineers of sorts, Roscoe. But this is where the people used to come in and out of Dingle Underground station. Okay, this is the tunnel entrance to the Dingle Underground railway station, where commuters used to either come out this way or in this way. So you go all the way down here, and this is the actual station area here. Okay, so here we are again at the Dingle station, which of course is no longer a railway station, the final stop of the overhead railway. And we're delighted that Nigel, who's co-owner of this space now, the old Dingle station, and there's the tunnel where the trains used to come through here. We're now probably on the railway track, are we, Nigel?
What we'd be stood in is on the platform.
On the platform, right?
There was a platform in the middle with a track either side.
I see. I believe there's a story. I know that in 1901 there was a terrible tragedy here which made national news around the country, and 6 people were actually killed. Could you talk a little bit about that? There was a fire of some sort, wasn't it?
That's right. Well, from the story we heard, that there was a train battling against a gale, the last train of the day, and because it was very, very late, the people that ran Dingle Station shut the doors and went home. But once the train got out of the gale and into the tunnel, it was very, very overheated. Its electric motors were overheated and it caught fire. So the driver tried to restart it. He reset the circuit breakers and opened the throttle, or whatever you call it, and the whole thing blew up and went into flames. And it was just inside the station here. And the people that ran into the station this way to escape, unfortunately, they came up against locked gates. But the people who ran out the other way towards the river were okay, they survived. This was quite some time ago, 1901, I believe.
And I believe that the ventilation shaft is actually here where people were trying to
Yes,
escape.
so in the corner over here, we can show you where the ventilation shaft was.
Brilliant. So this is, again, this would be the...
Yeah, this bridge was built later. This was after the overhead railway closed, because there was a wooden bridge here.
Yeah.
And steps down to the platform in the middle.
Right.
And you might be able to see one of those refuges there that alongside the track. That little hole in the wall there is where if somebody was working on the track and a train came, he would stand in there out of the way. They're all the way along the tunnel, about every 100 yards there's one of those.
All right.
In this corner here, you can see how wonderfully constructed it was in its day. They didn't used to do things by half measures then. They've got all these beautiful carved, specially carved sandstone pieces for the tunnel.
And this is the ventilation shaft.
This hole here, this shaft used to be, years ago, when the overhead railway was working, this was open at the top, and the air used to blow out through this. And as you can see, there is the remains of a ladder there, and possibly some of these people trying to get out may have climbed up this ladder, but they may have found that there was a grating over the top to stop the pigeons coming in. And this tunnel here extends only under the middle of Park Road. There was a plan that they were going to go all the way around the city and make a big loop, like a big underground system as well as the overhead, but it never came to anything. I think the overhead railway didn't have massive finances, you know, they only charged about 9 old pence for a journey. It was very, very cheap.
There's a lot of disappointment, and there still is, for the folk who remember the railway.
Well, yes,
a massive
exactly.
disappointment about the fact that it's not here now.
I know, wouldn't it be wonderful now if it was still here? What a fantastic tourist attraction.
A great tourist attraction.
Yeah. When I was about this high, my dad took me on it because he said, we're going to go and see this big liner that's been on fire. And they filled it up with so much water, it's almost fallen over.
Right, became a bit of an attraction. Yeah. So you actually got a memory as a kid of,
yes.
Of riding on the
yes,
railway?
and I must have been only probably 6 or 7 or something.
Yeah.
Because I was born in 1946.
Right.
So, and the deal was, come on, kids, we're going on the overhead railway
Could
today.
you just briefly tell
Yes.
us what it was like? I know you were very young, but could you just give us some memories about that journey?
I remember I remember the rattling noise of it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, as a little child, we used to live on the Wirral originally, and it used to come to Liverpool quite often on the old Mersey Railway as it was. And I do remember that the frightening, to me, a little small child, the frightening rattle of the train going through the tunnel. And I thought it was like a never-ending purgatory, you know. And the overhead railway I seem to remember, made of lots of rattling and crashing and banging because of the
wooden seats.
Yes, I think it was sure it was wooden seats. Yeah. And of course it was on this steel construction, which probably there might have been a few loose bolts on. Yeah. So that might do lots of rattles. But the idea of looking down on the ships and that was fabulous.
That's fantastic.
That was brilliant, because you'd almost look down the funnels of the ships and you could see all of them, and there were loads in those days.
It was a very unique vantage point to see everything. So what do you think about the fact that it was pulled down, just briefly?
I think it's very tragic, really.
Yeah,
because
a lot of people say, isn't it?
It was terribly badly corroded. The deck was corroded. The deck was made of like inverted U sections, and water collected in them. And with the steam engines, the steam locomotives underneath, puffing a load of sulphurous acid underneath. So it corroded really badly, and what they should have done really was taken it in hand and rebuilt it, you know, restored it.
Yeah.
It was just after the war, there wasn't that much money in it.
As we stand here in front of two modern additions to the great city of Liverpool, reflect on a rather sad thought that probably the city's greatest structure is no longer with us. The Dockers umbrella. That's the affectionate term that the everyday worker gave this iconic piece of, transportation history. They used to gather under the railway when it rained, have a cigarette, chat, and that's how it became known as, rather affectionately, the Dockers umbrella.